Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Tainted and Tempted podcast. I'm your host, Asia. As you can see, I have a special guest here with me today, but before I let him introduce himself, I want to talk about what we're going to talk about for today's topic. And today's topic is going to be, why is it so important to become your higher self? So I'm going to let my guest introduce himself, and we're going to jump right into it. So I have...
Stephen Bowles.
Yes, Stephen, how you doing today?
I'm great, aka Mick Longhair on all my socials. MC Longhair, easier to remember.
Yes.
I've always debated about the stage name. I say Mick Longhair, it's easy to remember. Stephen Bowles could be spelled 4 or 5 different ways, you know? So I say Mick Longhair, that's where to find me.
Exactly,
yeah.
That's where to find them. On his Instagram and everything, and your Facebook too, right?
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, it's all Mick Longhair. Yeah, everywhere to find me. Yep.
Got it. Perfect. So, if you don't know what I mean by higher self, it is your higher self is the truest and authentic version of you. The part of you that's deeply connected to wisdom, purpose, and inner peace. It's often described as your spiritual self. Intuition or inner guide that rises above ego, fear, and emotions. We all have higher selves. We just have to bring it out and know it takes time, but it's worth it. I'm functioning at my higher self every day because I want more and I want to achieve more. So, Stephen, what is your higher self?
I think your higher self or your highest self is the version of yourself that has your best interests at heart, as well as the best interests of the people that you care about around you.
Yes.
Those two things I think are important. I think even though you're talking about your higher self, it feels, individualized. I still think your higher self cares a lot about the people that you care about.
Exactly.
So whatever's helping you and helping the people around you is important. It's obviously more important, you need to help yourself before you can help others.
Exactly.
But I think once you get to that place and you're able to branch out, then your highest self has your best interest at heart, which in turn has the best interest of everybody you care about at heart.
And we should always be in our higher nature every day.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of things will be settled. A lot of things will be better if we're in our higher nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I think it's funny, being a comedian, I think this is a good topic for me because I feel like being a comedian is kind of both being your highest self and your basest self at the same time. Like, I think when you're your highest self, like, that's when you're, like, connecting with people, like, on a spiritual level. But kind of to get to the funny stuff, you kind of got to be the basest version.
You got to go down a little bit.
You gotta relate to people, say, like, hey, I've done this dumb shit too, like, I think it's a nice mix of both. I think, like, the bass kind of gets you get your foot in the door and gets people laughing, and then hopefully if you're doing comedy with any purpose, using your platform for good, it's your higher self that's delivering that message. Yeah, exactly.
That's going to show it more. Yes. So why do you think being your best self matters?
I think it matters just because any period I've had in my life where I felt good, I felt up, and that's, like, regardless of what's happening in my life. I'm not talking about, like, I'm doing well financially.
Right.
I'm talking about I'm doing well as a person.
Yes.
It's like when I'm more my higher self, when I'm looking out for myself or trying not to give in to those baser instincts.
Yes.
So I think it'll do a lot for your mental health,
if
you're your higher self.
Yes. That's a good answer. Thank you. So why is it important to listen to your higher self?
I think it's important because we talk about listening to our higher self. That implies there's another voice you're listening to also, and that's
your intuition.
It's intuition. I was actually going to say, if, like, your higher self is the angel on your shoulder, you got the devil on your shoulder, and they're fighting for control all the time. All the time. My therapist and I talk about this a lot. That when I'm bed rotting or just can't be bothered to give a shit about things I should give a shit about, it's that devil on your shoulder. It's like, none of this really matters. Like, who cares?
To block you, who cares? You don't want to do it. He's always in your mind trying to stop you from becoming your higher self.
Yeah, and this is short-term gratification, and the angel, the higher self, is long-term gratification. So it's harder to do. You don't feel the immediate release.
Exactly.
And so that's why it's important to listen to the higher self instead of the devil on your shoulder.
Exactly, because it will work, and they both add it all the time.
All day, every day.
Every day, even when you make decisions, when you want to do things, they're just at it. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And you got to pick which side do you want to go on.
Yeah.
That you want to go for, Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So how do you feel when you follow your higher self, when you become your higher self? Like, how do you feel? Do you feel good?
I think it like kind of depends. Like sometimes in the moment it just feels like something I got to get through or do just because I know it'll be beneficial in the long term. I think afterwards is more gratifying when it's like you can see the results of whatever it was that you were doing. But in the moment it's not. It's like I said, it's the long term gratification versus short term. So in the moment it can be a struggle. You know, it can be annoying. It can feel like, you know, this is all for nothing. You know, but I think if you kind of just trust the process and trust that, like I said, anytime you've had something good happen, it's probably because you've been listening to your higher self. So I think it's kind of just about locking in and embracing the suck, you know, and kind of dealing with it for that.
Yeah, I feel, and you know what? I feel so good when I follow my higher self, because when I just listen to my intuition, because my intuition every day tells me, get up at 5 a.m., read these books, go outside, go for a jog, go to the gym. And it's like sometimes one part of me is like, do it. And then another part is like, I want to stay in bed. I want to relax. I want to do this, you know? So you're just fighting the part of you that wants to go to the top, but then the part that doesn't want to go. You know, so it's just a back and forth kind of consistent thing that goes on. But you know what? I feel good when I'm following my higher self. Now I'm in my higher nature every day. I'm like, you know what? Let me read this book. Before I got here, I was reading a book.
Great.
You know, I was reading a book, The 12-Week Year, How to Accomplish More in 12 Weeks Than in 12 Months.
Okay.
And it's really good. He's telling me how to accomplish things in 12 weeks, how to have a plan, how to have a clear goal, how to have a vision. And that's true. We have to have a vision if we want to go after our goals. You know, so it's really helpful. So I'm reading, you know, I went to the gym a little earlier.
Hell yeah.
So I'm pushing myself to be in my higher nature. I'm doing my podcast consistently every week. So, you know, I'm pushing myself to the point where I want to be, and that's on top.
Yeah, and all that builds too. You know, it builds into good habits.
Exactly.
Because that's something I don't remember where I heard this. It feels more like a colloquialism than an actual quote, but good decisions beget good decisions.
Yes.
And bad decisions beget bad decisions. So it's like you got to try to stay consistent.
Exactly.
Also, you know, give yourself grace for when you fall off the wagon.
You do.
But still, try to maintain the momentum. The momentum is huge. If you can get a little momentum build up, it's great, because momentum builds up both ways.
And you got to give yourself credit too when you do those things, you know, because it's beautiful, you know, and it's like, you know, I'm making these moves for my life and I'm so happy. You know, I want to be moving in this direction, and I'm going to keep on moving in that direction, you know? Yeah.
And a lot of like artists like us are like super hard on themselves, because this is like I feel like almost any artist, it's typically, you know, whether it's comedy, music, podcasting, whatever it is, it's a sport with yourself, you know, so you're not competing against no one else.
No.
So you're only competing against you.
Yes.
So you don't really feel when you win. You feel when you lose.
Yeah.
When you win, it just feels like, well, I did what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to compete against yourself all the time, but you know, it's about just being consistent all the time.
Exactly.
Or as much as possible anyway.
Yes. So how does becoming your higher self help you feel better inside?
I think that is a good question. I think it's, like I said, is being able to like lay in bed at the end of the day and know that you didn't screw around that day.
Yeah, you accomplished.
That you did something that day, that you did what you said you were going to do, or at least took steps to say what you were going to do. And also that looks different for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about being productive and getting this shit done and that shit done. But, you know, someone who's like struggling with addiction or something, like if you just laid in bed all day and didn't touch whatever it is your favorite vice is, then that is equally good. You know, it looks different on different people.
It does.
So I think when you're listening to your higher self, you would naturally feel a little bit better for it, or at least you can kind of mentally write it off as like you know, I did
moving.
that.
Yeah, you're moving. You're on top. Boom, boom. You know, you're going for your goals. You're going after it. You're going after everything that you got invested in your mind. Everything that's telling you what to do, you're just doing it. Boom, 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 boom. Knocking it out. Boom, boom, boom. And you're not scared. You're not letting fear come in. You're not letting doubt get you. You just living your life, doing what is right, you know. And it's really good, and it feels good. It feels good to do it, because at the end I remember at one point, you know, I was always like dimming down who I was to fit in the needs of other people. Like I wouldn't be myself, you know, and I would go home at the end of the day mad at myself because I wasn't me. You know, I felt that loneliness inside, like, oh, you wasn't yourself. Just be yourself. So now I notice that I'm being myself now. You know, I'm being myself. Everything I do, I'm just being me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
I think, yeah, whatever you do, as long as you can stand on it, that's important. And I feel like I've seen that in my life, too, because obviously I do stand up. I've been working a ton, so I don't have as much like stand up clips as I would normally like to post. And comedians like to talk shit about the face front videos, you know, because they're like, oh, anybody could do that shit, you know. But comedians still do it, obviously, all the time. And I'm not saying I had that chip on my shoulder. I was just saying I would rather post stand up clips. But then I started recording. I basically was just saying a bunch of fuck ice videos, you know, because that's been what's on my fucking mind lately. That shit has been fucking with my head, you know. And so I just started speaking about that into the phone, and people have been responding more than they ever have to most of my stand up. You know, I've had stand up clips do really well,
right.
But these clips are catching on like wildfire, and I'm like, this might get me quietly assassinated someday, but you know, but for right now, you know, I'm like, it's honestly so nice to see so many people agree, you know. I'm like, I feel like I'm saying the quiet part out loud, 'cause I'm saying like, no, fuck these guys, you know, like fuck this whole thing,
right,
you know? But a lot of people are agreeing, and I think that felt like my higher self, you know, where I'm like, I joke on stage, I always say my set is usually very sex, drugs, and rock and roll, very blue, you know, and I never talked about politics on stage for 10 years. I've been doing this shit for 10 years, and I never talked about politics on stage. Well, I always used to joke, I say, I got a foot and a half of hair, no one gives a shit about my political opinions, you know? And so I felt like I was staying in my lane, you know? But at this point in time, it feels like it would be absolutely irresponsible not to talk about it, because we're comedians supposed to be social barometers, you know, see where the culture is at, where society is at. So I'm like, yeah, it would be absolutely insane to not talk about this shit at this point. So I feel like I was following my higher self when I said, fuck it, I'm just going to talk about this a little bit. And it's been paying dividends, you know? It's been nice.
So that's your calling. That's where you got to start.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. I'm keeping with it. I've recorded a few videos today. I'm trying to post every day again. So yeah, I've been trying to stick with it, and I do think that was a higher self move for sure.
To do. Yes.
Yeah, speak out about injustice. You know, yeah. I love talking about sex and drugs, you know. That's fun. I'll do that any day of the week. But I'm like, nah, this holds a little bit more weight. You know, this feels more important than what I was doing before. And I love making people laugh. Anything to make people laugh is my favorite thing. But I'm like, I'm making people laugh, and it feels more important, you know?
And it holds value.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
But that felt very much like a higher self move, you know?
It was in your higher nature. It was calling you like, whoo. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, so do you think the world would be a better place if everyone tried to be in their higher self?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Because, like, especially just as a concept, being your higher self would imply being the best version of yourself. And so when everyone's the best version of themselves, I imagine that would have to be good, you know?
The world would be a better place.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, right? It's not easy to be your higher self, so that's why not everyone is. And a lot of people gain either financially or other ways from not being their higher self. You know, they gain from doing the evil shit. They gain from laying thousands of people off. They gain from not giving a shit about the rest of the population. And so but that ain't their higher self, and they're all miserable, you know? Did you ever watch Succession?
No.
I liked it as a show, and initially I didn't want to watch it because I'm like, why the fuck would I want to relate to billionaires? You know? Why would I want to watch this show? And then I start watching it, I'm like, oh, it's billionaires and they're miserable. All the time. All the time they're miserable. And I'm like, okay, I kind of fuck with that, actually. I'm like, this is a great storyline, and none of them are happy. So I'm like, okay, I can get behind this. Great show, but for real, like, they really are miserable all the time, and it's like, and you still see that even in real life billionaires, you know?
They say you can have all the money and still be miserable and not happy.
Exactly. I will say, obviously, you do need a certain base level of money. The people that are like, money won't solve all your problems. I'm like, how much money are you making?
It will.
All right, you know, it would solve a fuckload of my problems. You know, if I was going from a mid 5-figure to a low 6-figure, that would fix all of my problems. You know? Are you kidding? But it won't buy you happiness, though. That's the thing. Not all the money in the world can't buy you happiness. So it will buy you what's the word I'm looking for? A stable life. You know, you're not having to worry about a roof over your head or where your next meal's coming from. That will make you a happier person. That would make it easier to be your higher self.
Exactly.
If you're not just struggling to survive. You know, I think it's tough because like if you're talking about being your higher self, but then a lot of people are just struggling to get by. You know, like they have real life shit they're dealing with. So like their like mental health is not their first priority. Their first priority is how am I going to feed my kids? Yeah. How am I going to get to work? You know, like so it's tough. It's a tough balance.
It is.
You know?
It is.
And it almost feels, you know, I don't want to say it disingenuous to be like, oh, life will get better when you follow your heart, you know? And it's like for some people, yeah, it absolutely does, you know? But there's still plenty of people that have tried to follow their heart and nothing happens. So it's a tough thing. You just got to take it day by day. So
you do. So what is one small step you can take to grow into your higher self?
This is gonna sound corny, all right. But one thing that I think helped me connect with my higher self, I'm not gonna lie, I started really enjoying hypnosis videos on TikTok, and what I realized when hypnosis has a weird connotation to it of a dude with a clock trying to make you meow like a cat, you know? Yes. That's not really what most of it is. Most hypnosis is just like guided meditation.
It is
all it is. It's just like a dude or a woman speaking softly in your ear and being like, breathe. Focus on your breathing, and then like that helps quiet my mind too, because I got a brain that doesn't shut up.
Yeah, me too.
I think a lot of us are like that.
Yes.
I always said that's why I've enjoyed weed for as long as I have, because I remember when I started smoking, I'm like, oh, this turns my brain off, like it shuts it up.
Lucky
you know?
you.
Yeah.
Lucky. Oh my God.
Well, I will say it's kind of gotten less and less as I've gotten older.
Okay.
I feel like the effects have kind of subdued a little bit. You know, it used to help me sleep. It don't really help me sleep as much anymore. But like it does help me kind of just mellow out, and like whatever I thought was a huge problem beforehand, if I smoke a little weed and it's still a problem, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
But more often than not, whatever personal thing I think is a huge problem, I'll smoke a little weed and be like, shit doesn't really matter that much, you know? Like, yeah.
You like it calms you down.
Yeah, exactly. But people looking to get in their higher self, I'm telling you, it's just simple TikTok hypnosis videos. They're out there, you know. Find someone you like. I like this dude on TikTok named Lester. I love this guy.
He's good.
His name is Lester Hypnosis. He's great at what he does, and he just speaks calmly and quietly into the mic. He has all type of videos for like he has videos like helping you fall asleep. He has a bunch of videos like help you get over your ex. You know, I watched those through some breakups before.
I got you.
And any number of things, you know, but it's more just like a exercise in like quieting your own mind. And if you're someone like me whose mind doesn't shut up, it's almost like you're just letting someone else think for you for a second. All you got to do is zero in on what they're saying, and that's it, you know. And that's kind of how I got into the higher self thinking, you know, the spiritual stuff, is through that. So I think otherwise, you know, beforehand I thought it was, you know, liberal voodoo shit, you know, right. Hypnosis, higher self. What does that even mean? You know, but I'm like, no, I see the value. You know, it makes a lot of sense. So I think if you're trying to connect with your higher self, you know, you need some help. Right?
You do.
If you could do it by yourself, everyone would. So, you know, read a book, or if you're like me, you got no attention span. Yeah, a little TikTok. Yeah, why not? But I think having some guidance, I think, is the number one way to do it. Yeah, you can't do it by yourself. So get some guidance wherever your preferred choice is. Mine was the TikTok hypnosis, and you know, yours is the books that you're reading.
Yeah, the books that I'm reading. Yeah. And I also watched this YouTuber. Well, yes, his name is Ralph Smart. He's really good too. He talks about spiritual awakenings. He talks about higher self. He kind of inspired me to talk about, you know, for my season to talk about higher self.
Okay.
And talk about meditation and manifestation. You know, those podcast topics are coming up. I got them in the works already.
Right.
You know, but he inspired me to talk on more of a spiritual side, because this is where we're all at, and we need to focus on that. And the thing is too, I want to wake up my youth and let them know, like, listen, this is real stuff. You know, this stuff can really put us to the forefront. But the thing is, I don't want to get pop. I don't want to get pop.
Yeah, me either.
I don't want to say too much then You know, so I gotta
and
watch.
fall off a roof.
Yeah, or get overdosed.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I don't want to say too much, but I do want to enlighten my people and let them know about spiritual awakenings and higher selves, like we're talking about today. And you know, why is it so important to trust your intuition? That's what I talked about last week. I had a guest about that. So you know, spiritual things. And this guy, his name is Ralph Smart. He talks about it all. Chosen ones, spiritual awakenings. He talks about how to get out of negative thoughts, because sometimes your mind can just always be in negative thinking all the time, right?
Yes,
you know
what
I
course.
mean, right?
Yeah,
always
been there.
Negative thinking. Your mind is always going. So he teaches you how to get out of that. It's a lot. You should check him out. His name is Ralph Smart.
Ralph Smart.
Yes.
I'm gonna check him out.
He's really good. Yeah, he's really good. Yes.
Hell yeah.
Yes. So the last thing I want to say is, what would you say to someone who wants to become their best self but doesn't know how?
I think check out Ralph Smart. Yeah, check out Lester Hypnosis.
Yes.
I think if you want to, that's the first step. You know, I think that's like the first step in any recovery.
Yeah.
You know, like especially
watch stuff.
Yeah, or like I meant like any like abuse or like substance abuse. The first step is wanting to have it fixed.
help, yeah.
So like if you're already wanting to be there, then you're that's half the first battle. You know, so just be open-minded. I think is important. Be open-minded to the stuff, because like I said, it sounds like hippy dippy shit.
Hippy when you get into it, right? It's
like, and you got to be open to it as well. You know, you got to like not ridicule it as you listen to it. You know, because like
you got to elevate your mind. You got to be open to hearing this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You got to come at it with an open mind and try, like, because with the hypnosis thing, people be like, well, I don't feel hypnotized right now. You know, like then you're not gonna. You know, like you just gotta all he's trying to do is just fucking talk to you. You know, that's it. Just let him talk. Like, so I think as long as you want to, you will, and you will just kind of just open up to it.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to achieve being your higher self, you're already partly there
by doing that, just that. And you have to be open. You have to have an open mind. You have to be willing to take in this information, because you have to do it one way or another. You know, I feel like, when you get in your late 20s going into your 30s, that's when you start waking up.
Yeah, absolutely. In
your early 20s, you're dumb. You're doing dumb shit. You're just dumb. You know, not to say dumb like that, but you don't
have enough life experience.
You don't know yet. You know, but then when you get to your end of your 20s, you start going to your 30s, you start wising up, you start gaining wisdom, and you start learning about this world. You know what I'm saying?
That's actually something interesting I've always said with comedy and with stand-up, was I always said I felt jealous, because I started when I was 20. I'm 32 now. I started when I was 20 in Virginia in 2013, I think. And something I noticed, especially in like my first 5 or 6 years of stand-up, I was always jealous of the new comedians that were starting in their 30s, because if they stuck with it, I felt like they found their voices faster. Right. And it's because they were already a fully formed human being when they started, So I was 20. I just sounded like, an amalgamation of all my favorite comedians. I didn't really know who I was yet. So it's like I was getting good practice and learning joke structure and how to deal with crowds. And that's all good knowledge. But it was like the 30-year-olds, like when they were 2 years in, I felt like they were as far in or as experienced as I was 6 years in, because they already knew who they were, and they weren't making excuses for who they were. They weren't, trying to pander to nobody. They're like, this is what I believe and this is why. Right. And it's like, and they have the life experience to stand on that, know? So I think, like you said, 20-year-olds aren't inherently dumb. Not inherently. Some of y'all, I'm sure you're very wise beyond your years. But I think once you get a few more years under your belt, some real life experience, I think that helps a lot. You know, I also think there's a huge like emotional maturity gap between like 22 and 27. I feel like 27 to me, I'm like, that's like an adult. I was like, anything before 27, I'm like, you're young. You
are.
I'm like, you might pay your own bills, you might have your own place, you might have a good job. But I'm like, there's just something about 27 that I'm like, I felt like shit clicked for me then, so maybe I'm just projecting, but I don't know. The more people I meet, that's one thing I love about stand up. I meet as many 50-year-olds as I meet 23-year-olds doing this shit, and so and I find things I like about all of them, you know. But obviously, the 23-year-old don't know what the fuck they're talking about sometimes, you know, in a cute way. They shouldn't. They're only 23. I'm not holding nothing against them. But yeah, it's just finding who you are, and it just takes time.
It is just like when I started my podcast. I started at 27 too. I'm 34 now.
Okay.
And when I started, I was talking about all the celebrity gossip, you know, hip hop, you know. I was talking about, and then I went through a spiritual awakening. I started waking up. My eyes opened up. I started seeing life in a different way. You know, I started reading more books. I started going into angel numbers 666, 12, 12, 11, 11, all that stuff. My mind just opened up. I don't know how to explain it. It was just like a big wake-up call. You know, I feel like I woke up from a dream. Like I was asleep and I just woke up.
Yeah.
You know, it was just literally like that. And when I started my podcast back, I just started talking about those things. Like, you know, and I feel like I'm going into it more deeper now because I'm in my 30s and I'm really serious about it. You know, and I want everybody to know about this.
Yeah.
Because this is real life. And not a lot of people talk about this. And it's real. A lot of people have spiritual awakenings. They talk about this all the time. It's just people don't read into it. But it's a real life thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
It is.
And I'm a big fan of acid as well. In terms of spiritual awakenings, that will really change things for you, yo. And like, it has to be a good environment. You got to be with people you trust and an environment you save in. But I swear to God, there was one time I was with friends on the beach. The beach. And like just feeling the sand on my fingers and the stars they look like a Mandela pattern. You know what I mean? Like literally everything connecting, you know? And you really do feel one with the universe, and you feel small in like a beautiful way, you know? And that was exactly what I needed in that moment, you know? It recalibrated me. I'm not just saying do a bunch of acid and you'll fix yourself, you know?
Right.
It's not like that, but it was kind of amazing because I don't really know a whole lot about it. I'm not, you know, not one of these crypto bros that drops acid at work and and it says it makes them do better work. I think that shit is so overrated and dumb.
Right.
But yeah, once in a while, you know, I heard someone describe it as like when you're stuck in the same patterns all the time, and it's like you're a snowboarder on a mountain, snowboarding down the same path all the time. And so you do a little acid, it's like a fresh layer of snow.
Oh my God.
And it really does, and I think it does on some neural, you know, brain shit, like help.
Nah, I ain't doing that.
All right, fair enough.
I'm sorry. I ain't trying to do anything that's gonna mess up with my mind. No ecstasy.
No, okay. No, don't do none of that. Yeah, don't do none of that.
No, don't do drugs, all right?
Drugs are bad.
No,
never.
Don't do it.
Don't ever do them. No, they're bad all the time.
Yes. No, we don't need that. We don't need that. We need to come into our higher self, okay?
Well, you said higher self, so
yes,
I'm just talking about acid.
Okay, so connecting to your higher self is like tuning into your soul's frequency. It takes intention, quiet, and honesty. Here are powerful ways to help you connect. Meditation. Quiet your mind to hear your inner voice. Focus on your breath and use guided meditations that center on self-awareness or spiritual connection. Journaling. Ask questions like, what do I truly want? What would my higher self do in this situation? Write freely without judging your truth will surface. Spending time in nature. Being in natural settings helps you slow down and reconnect with your inner peace and purpose. Mindfulness and presence. Stay in the moment. When you're fully present, you become more aware of your inner guidance and less driven by a fear or ego. Listening to your intuition, that's key. The quiet gut feeling, that's your higher self nudging you. Practice trusting it, even in small decisions. Spiritual practices, prayer, affirmations, energy healing, or working with crystals raise your vibration and open the channel to your higher self. Letting go of ego and fear. Your ego clings to pride, control, and fear. Your higher self operates from love, truth, and trust. Notice when you're acting out of ego and choose differently. Reading or learning spiritual wisdom books, like we talked about. Books, podcasts, or teachings about self-growth and consciousness that help you stay inspired and aligned. Doing the inner work. Healing past wounds. Forgiving yourself and others and understanding your emotional patterns clears the path to your higher self. Most importantly, be gentle with yourself. Your higher self isn't something you achieved. It's already within you. You're just learning how to listen. So, Stephen, let's start the interview with you, okay?
All right. It sounds good. I liked a lot of that. I liked a lot of that.
It's true. It is true. It's true. So, what is your comedian name again?
I just go by Stephen Bolles. It's StephenBolles.
Okay.
But like I said, all the social media is Mick Longhair, MC Longhair. Easier to remember. A little catchier.
Yes, I like that. And I like the hair and everything.
Yeah. I got to flex it, you know?
Yes. You got a nice little washer set. It looks good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've had this hair since high school too. I've had it a long time. My routine is I grow it down to my waist, and then I cut like 8 to 10 inches and donate that. So I've been doing that for the last like 10, 11 years now. I think I've donated 3 or 4 times.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I say I use my head as a hair farm. But it is funny when it does get that long. I hate how it looks because it's so long it's distracting. Like I don't like my stand-up tapes anymore because the hair's wearing me. You know, and the reason I grow it so long was one time I didn't grow it long enough before a cut, and they have to take 8 to 10, and then they cut it just above my shoulders.
Wow.
I look like Lord Farquaad. You know, it was a bad look. So now we grow it really, really long and then get rid of it.
Cut it and give it away. That's nice.
Yeah, I've been saying my hair has more fans than I do. So it's staying around.
It's staying around for good. Yes. So how did you start telling jokes?
So I have been listening to Weird Al since I was 9 years old. You know, I love Weird Al, the parody music. I started writing parodies when I was in like middle school, and I thought I was going to be like a funny music guy, you know? And I was a big musician too. I was a band geek in high school and college. And then it barely even occurred to me to try stand-up until I was in college. And then I found out that there was a comedy club just like 3 or 4 miles down the road. It's a spot called Kazi's Comedy Club in Newport News, Virginia. You know, that was my very first club.
The first show.
Yeah, and the first time I went is actually a great story because it was my freshman year or sophomore year, and I didn't have a car on campus. So I was kind of going stir crazy. And then I found out that there's this comedy club right down the road, and they do an open mic night on Thursdays. And it was Thursday, but it was raining. And I was like, well, if it stops raining, I'm going to borrow my roommate's bike and just bike down there. And then and it didn't stop raining. And I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to go. And so I grabbed a bike. I biked in the rain like 3 or 4 miles. And I was a lot heavier back then, too. I was about 80 pounds heavier back then. I vastly overestimated my cardio skills on that bike. I showed up like 45 minutes late to this mic. And soaking fucking wet, and showed up, and I gave the host my sob story.
And he let you go?
And he let me close out the show. I went on last, and then I did 5 minutes of jokes about my dick, and then it went pretty well. You know, and I was like, and then it was in that moment I was like, oh, I don't even need instruments, so fuck, let's just stand up from now on. You know, And so I was like, I always liked being funny. I always liked telling jokes. I always said, I was the big fat kid growing up, so I always said, I like to say when I was the big fat kid, I was Jack Black. You know, I was fun to be around. You know, I never had any girlfriends, but I had a lot of friends. So I was good in any social circle, fun to be around. So the stand-up was kind of a later revelation of like, oh, I should really write some jokes for this. And so, yeah, it just grew from there. And then I actually ended up dropping out of college to move to New York City to pursue stand-up. And that was about 10 years ago. And they say it takes 10 years to make an overnight success. So any day now. Any day now. Yeah, we're gonna get this. We're gonna get this pop any day now.
We gotta do it right. We gotta make it to the top. We gotta make it big, baby.
Exactly.
Listen, it's gonna come. God got us.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yes. So have you been on TV before?
I have not, but this is exciting.
Okay.
I don't have a exact date yet.
Okay.
But me and my family taped on Family Feud.
What?
With Steve Harvey.
And
it's supposed to come out after Thanksgiving, is what they told us.
Okay.
So, yeah. And the tricky thing with that I'm actually a little, not annoyed, but it's going to be annoying, is I actually taped with my step family. And so the name behind us is Caldwell. So I'm going to have to change all my social media shit to Stephen Caldwell. Yeah, after that comes out, you know, so people can find me. But yes, we'll be on TV, hopefully at the end of this year or beginning of next year for Family Feud.
That's what's up.
Yeah,
I tried to get my family to do that one time. Nobody answered me.
Really?
Yeah.
No one in your family?
Nobody replied.
Oh, that's lame.
I sent out a group text and nobody just.
Yeah, I will say my stepsister Julia honchoed the whole thing. So she applied us, and then we got the virtual audition.
Yeah, because don't you gotta like record yourself like a video?
I think all we did was send in like some basic information and photos. The only thing I remember was I think we had 1 or 2 Zooms with one of the producers or whoever's in charge of casting, and then we did like a mock round of Family Feud, and then after that we didn't hear anything for a little bit, and then taped back in April, I think. So yeah, it was really fun, and that was such a cool experience. I'd never done anything on TV before, and that's like a real sound set. Like it was really cool, and everybody on the staff was great. You know, they were so nice, really helpful, and I think we were like. We had to get there early. It was like 7:30, I think. Yeah, it's early for me because I work a lot of late night jobs, so I'm not used to being a morning person. But it was still really fun. It was really cool. So hopefully on TV very soon.
Yeah, and you're going to be on YouTube.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And you're going to be on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Yeah, true.
Yes, on Monday at 2 p.m.
Yeah, they should hire you.
Yes,
yes. That's so good.
Yes. Okay. So, what is your No, let me ask you this: how did you first know you wanted to be a comedian?
I always say I remember the first time I got a laugh was in first grade. I had a cast on my arm. I broke my arm doing little kid shit, you know.
Okay.
And the teacher said something to the effect of like, raise your left hand of this and raise your right hand of that. And then like I was one of the only people that like raised my right hand, but like this with the cast on, and the rest of the kids laughed. And I was like, oh, that was awesome. that was cool. Yeah. Let's keep doing that. And so, yeah, like I said, I just always enjoyed making people laugh and being fun to be around. I've always been pretty extroverted, and like I said, in terms of like actual comedy writing, my earliest thing was writing parodies, just like Weird Al, I remember, I think the first one I ever wrote, and I so wish I had a copy of this because I think it's so pure, because it was from the heart of like a 12-year-old or 9-year-old or something. I wrote a parody of Linkin Park's Breaking the Habit. It was a very emotional, strong song. And as a child, I wrote a parody. It was supposed to be sung by Elmer Fudd, and it was called Hunting for Wabbits. And so it was hunting for wabbits tonight, And like, I think back, I'm like, that's genuinely really funny. Like, I wish I had the little piece of paper that I had scribbled that in. So I showed it to people, and they thought it was funny, But yeah, and outside of that, yeah, just writing, and then like I said, doing stand up in college, and that was kind of when I locked in. Was in college, where I was like, this is what we're gonna do.
This is me.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what we're gonna do. I knew I wanted to be on stage for the rest of my life when I did a talent show my junior year in high school. I beatboxed. I'm a pretty good beatboxer, honestly. Yeah. And I did a talent show in high school, and I was already playing with like my little garage band for the talent show. And they said, well, you can't be in 2 acts. That's weird. And I was like, well, what if I just open the show? Like as not an act, just like a warm up. And they're like, yeah, cool. And like literally I walked right out on stage, like no warm up, no nobody. And then I did my routine. It was like 2.5 minutes. I did a little Snoop Dogg. I did the
okay.
I have 500 kids doing exactly that. I have 500 kids in the palm of my hand going, hey, hey. And I remember I ended my routine really abruptly and walked off stage. It was part of the routine was ending abruptly and walking off. And like that was the first standing O I had ever gotten.
Wow.
And it was, like I said, auditorium of 500 kids. I just remember standing behind that wall and just soaking it in, being like, that's the best I've ever felt, by far. I'm like, we're doing this for the rest of our life.
Wow.
That was amazing. And then it's a few years later, did that with stand-up, and I was like, let's do that. Yeah, we can get the same thing from that. So that was my origin story. Yeah,
that's beautiful. I like that.
Yeah, it was fun. I do love storytelling on stage. Storytelling is really fun.
Got it. So who who is your biggest comedy inspiration?
I have a few. Bill Burr, for sure. He's been around forever, and I've loved him for forever. Mm-hmm. Big disappointment to see him on the Riyadh Comedy Festival. Do you know about that?
No.
There's a big festival in Saudi Arabia called the Riyadh Comedy Festival.
Okay.
And it's put on by the Saudi Arabian government, the Crown Prince or whatever. Basically, the same people that killed and chopped up that journalist want to put on a comedy show to whitewash their regime and make them look not bad. And they paid like so many famous comedians tons of money to just confirm. And basically, it's just a huge bag for absolutely just abandoning your fucking morals, you know what I mean? Which a lot of the comedians on the lineup I'd expect, you know what I mean? It's not that they're all stand-up people, but Bill Burr has railed against billionaires his entire career. And it's like now you offer him a bag and he went, you know what I mean? Like, and you're not allowed to make fun of their religion, you're not allowed to make fun of the Saudi government or the prince or the family, any of that shit. I still like Bill Burr. I still think he's one of the best comedians of our generation. That was just a recent disappointment that I'm grappling with. Right. I still love Jim Jeffries was another big one for me, an early one. Cat Williams is a big one for me.
I love Cat Williams.
Cat Williams is one of my favorite, and Cat Williams is one of my favorite. Just everyone knows him for talking shit on Shannon Sharp's podcast. Yeah, I still one of my first impressions of Cat Williams was his bit about Michael Jackson and shitting on Michael Jackson. Yep. I'm pretty sure while Michael Jackson was still alive.
Yeah, he did that when he was alive.
Yeah, and the audience was like booing him. Yeah, half of the audience wasn't with it. Yeah, and he was still standing his ground saying, "No, fuck Michael." Like that is what a comedian does. He's standing on what he believes and what he knows to be true. That is one of the, I think, in terms of stand up, if I were to get like abducted by aliens and they said, "Show me the most important piece of culture that you can think of human culture," I'm like, this, this is what we should aspire to be. Is calling out that type of shit, or at least standing on it. I love Cat Williams. Yeah, Cat Williams. He's been there for a long time for me. Who else? I love Ali Wong. Love Daniel Tosh. There's tons of New York guys too. Yes. Big J. Okerson, Mike Britt, Sarah Silverman's great. Judah Freelander's hilarious. Yes. There's tons of them. Mm-hmm.
Martin too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Forget about Martin.
Of course, Martin. I always joke. People joke around about verbal stims or things they say all the time. One of mine is Cat Williams from that bit about Michael Jackson. I love it with my friends. Once in a while, just throw out "not never," which is from the joke of whenever you ever seen Michael Jackson walking around with a woman and thought, "Man, he's fucking the shit out of her." Not never, and like that. I've been saying that shit since I was in high school. Like it made me laugh so hard. But that's absolutely one of my absolute top 3 favorite bits of all time.
He's the best.
Cat Williams is great.
Yeah, he is. Okay, so what is the funniest thing you ever did on stage?
Okay, well, I've done a lot of funny stuff on stage, but something that stands out for me because it was a massive error was I actually got to do, there's a show that I love. It's called Comedy Ugly. And it's run by 3 of my friends who are all very funny women. And it's a comedy strip show. And so the comedian's on stage for like 10 to 15 minutes, and then in the middle of your set, they'll just start playing music, and you got to take off an item of clothing.
What?
And it is to the comedian's comfort level, like some people just like they wear the same shirt 5 times and rip it off, which is fun. I'm a freak. I get down to a thong. I love it. I don't give a shit. But the very first time I did that show, they had me close, and they were giving me free drink tickets all night, and some free shots. So like I was tipsy by the time I got on stage, and what I really messed up was at one point I went to they played a song, and so I was gonna remove my shoes, and so what was stupid was I should have sat down and removed the shoe. Instead, I was drunk and tried to stand on one leg and take off the shoe. And then the speaker setup was there were 2 speakers stacked on top of each other on either side of the stage. And while I was trying to take off my shoe, I just timbered into the speaker tower and I knocked off the top speaker like onto the ground. It was a big speaker too. It's like at least like this big, it's heavy. And it hit the ground and like people were concerned all of a sudden, And what's funny to me is like I just plopped on top of the second speaker like a seat, And so I was, and then it ruined the vibe for a second because people were like worried about the speaker. I was like, I'm fine. Why y'all give a shit about the speaker? You own the place? Relax, you know?
Yeah.
But that was definitely, I think, one of the wildest things I think I've had happen on stage. I haven't had that much wild stuff happen on stage. I did some pandemic shows. I've gotten heckled by some dogs, you know? I remember one time, actually, this is a better one. This is a better story, I think. One time during the pandemic, I was performing at the Tiny Cupboard in Brooklyn, which is a great club. They have a whole space in the building now for the club. But during the pandemic, they were hosting shows on the roof. So it was safe to do shows. And then one time, I am hosting a show, and then I bring a comedian on stage, and he's talking. And then while he's talking, this, like, huge drone, like, hovers up from the street right behind him. And so the problem was that it's really loud outside already. So the comedian did not know what was happening behind him. And the poor guy was in the middle of like a story. And now no one is listening to the story because everyone is looking at the drone. And that kind of annoyed me. I'm like, I don't know who the fuck's drone this is, you know?
Right.
I'm like, you dodging a $20 comedy ticket with a $500 drone? Like, what are you doing? And then eventually the drone kind of came, it was up high, but it came more forward. So it was more over the audience than behind the stage. And when that happened, I went like that. And then he finally saw it. And he's like, oh, that's what y'all were looking at. And he's like, who the fuck's drone is that? And I sort of got this thing. He said, who the fuck's drone is that? And this drone went, pew, like zipped off. You know, like I was like, oh, so it could hear us too. You know, it wasn't just watching, it could hear everything. I'm like, that might have been like an NYPD drone or something, because it was fancy, you know. But that was pretty wild. That's up there. No.
That's up there. Okay. So how do you come up with new jokes?
This is my favorite thing to tell, because in terms of joke writing, I always say I write down whatever made me laugh.
Okay.
That's the most important part.
It is.
Because so much with comedy writing, you get caught in this trap of like, I think people will like this. You know, I think people will like that. And that almost never works. It's whatever got a rise out of you first. That's actually what is funny. Yeah, exactly. So whatever made me laugh is something I write down. And then also, you got to trust your friends too, because there have been plenty of times where my friends told me write that down, and I didn't think anything of it, but they said write it down, and then it turned out to be great. Like one of my first jokes that I ever did, and it stayed in my set for 10 years until I taped it for the special, was, I remember I was with my friends from Kazi Comedy Club, first year doing comedy, and we're just pitching jokes, and I said, I was like, yeah, I don't know, this feels like more of like a tweet than a stage thing, but I was thinking like it would be funny to say like, oh, I'm so romantic that sometimes when I jerk off I like look at the moon, and then I hope that my boys are jerking off looking at the same moon, you know? And they all laughed, and they're like, dude, put that on stage. Like, fuck a tweet. Like, put that on stage. And that fucking joke was one of my go-to jokes for, like, 10 years.
It was?
You know? Yeah, it crushed every time. And I don't do it anymore because it's in the hour. It's already taped, you know?
Right.
That's almost like comedy etiquette. Once you have, like, a joke taped and online and established, like, it's not that big a deal if you do it on stage again. But, like, you know, you want to try to come up with more stuff than you want to dip into the old pot, you know? But yeah, so write down whatever you think, whatever made you laugh first. And then also if you have friends with comedy instincts that you trust.
True.
If they say to write something down, write that shit down.
It's true. It's true. Okay. So how do you know when a joke is really working?
A joke is really working when it works in every room.
Okay.
I think that's the tough part for a comedian, is that you have to perform in every room.
You do.
So it's like, you get to a level of comedian where it's like you sell tickets and people come to see you. You can say whatever you want, you know, those are your people. But at this level where I'm at now, like, I'm performing for young rooms, I'm performing for old rooms, I'm performing for mixed rooms, white rooms, black rooms, any type of room, you know.
Good.
So any joke that works in every single one of those rooms, like, that's some fire shit, you know.
Right.
That's what you want to keep around. Also, it is important to note that, like, there are jokes that will work better in one room that won't work in another room because of the crowd, you know. I got jokes about Molly that Gen Z kids love.
Yeah.
And the old folks have no idea what I'm talking about.
What you talking about, yeah.
Exactly. So it's kind of good to have both. Like, that's part of being a good comedian, is having enough material that whatever room you're put in, you have enough material for that room. And I remember feeling this way. There's one of my proudest moments on stage was, there's something in comedy at a comedy club called a Check Spot.
Okay.
And it literally refers to when the checks are being dropped on the table for the bill, you know. And what comedy clubs will do is they will put on a young amateur comic for what they call the check spot. And that's when everybody pays their bills, and then they'll put on the headliner, or then they'll put on the closing comedian. So the well-established comedian doesn't have to deal with that bullshit, you know?
Right.
It doesn't have to deal with a distracted crowd. So the check spot has to deal with a distracted crowd. And I was doing a check spot where the show before me was like a podcast show about action movies. And first of all, it's not even a comedy audience. It's like, it's a comedy podcast, but these are all action movie fans.
Right.
And I was saying, this is in New York City, this is in East Village, but this was like the most WWE Mountain Dew crowd I've ever seen at a comedy club. You know, it was a lot of redneck vibes in that room.
Right.
And so I went on, and the guys, like, they were literally given a note, and they're like, hey, thanks so much. That's our show. You know, here's a comedian to entertain you while your bills are being paid. But that's our show. You guys, thanks so much for coming. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm like, well, fuck, now I got to keep these people here, you know?
Right.
Because we got a check spot, and then we have other comics after me. So I'm like, I got to keep these people in this room. And I wrangled these people so fucking well, because I look like I like action movies.
Right.
And I had a bunch of Steven Seagal jokes.
You did?
Yeah, that I have never done since, that never worked before.
Wow.
But this crowd loved them, you know, and it kept the whole crowd in the room. That's the thing with the check spot, is that once people pay their checks, they can leave.
Right.
And once one audience member figures that out, all of them do. So you kind of like, you will get an exodus, you know, in the middle of the check spot sometime. But being a good comedian is just being able to perform in any room that you're set in, and that's hard to do. It's just about having so much material.
And that's the same thing with the host too.
Yes,
You gotta be ready to do it in any room.
Yes,
yeah. You do.
Hosting's important. I host a lot, you know, because I'm pretty high energy, you know, extrovert. I get pigeonholed as a host a lot, so
that's good.
That's what's up. It's about making people feel. I always say you want to turn the room from like a group of people into a community. You laugh more when you're with your community, you know?
You do.
So it's not just like a bunch of people like, oh, now we know this table's from Boston, this table from London, you know? Like, oh, he's a scientist, she's a soccer player, whatever, you know? Feel like you know each other a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last question of the day is going to be, what advice would you give to someone who wants to be a comedian?
It really just boils down to getting your reps in. It's just like the gym, you know? You just got to get your reps in and hit some open mics. And depending on where you live, that might be tough, you know? We're very blessed to live in New York City. I could hit 7 mics a day if I really wanted to.
Yeah.
In other places, it might not be as accessible, but I will say, I started in like Norfolk, Virginia. Okay. And so I would travel between Norfolk, Virginia and Virginia Beach and Richmond. And that's about like a 2-hour drive from Richmond to Virginia Beach.
Okay.
And even back then, I was still able to get up like at least 3-4 times a week between bar shows and open mics and stuff like that. So if you're willing to drive, if you're willing to put in the time, I'd say in most places there is something happening, you know? And if there's not, then, you know, find it, you know, find it, make a day out of it, like really pursue it. Write as much as you can, but I think a lot of people get stuck in that trap, like, oh, I've written so much, I just haven't gone on stage. I'm like, well, then it's like, that's like saying you got all the ingredients, but you haven't turned the oven on, you know, like you can have all the ingredients in the world, you're still not making shit until you cook it, you know?
Right.
So don't fall in the trap of thinking that you a comedy writer just because you've written a bunch of comedy, you know? If you want to be a comedy writer, then yes, submit to TV shows, submit to late night shows,
right.
Submit that comedy writing, you know? But if you're trying to be a stand-up, if you're trying to be a joke teller, the only way to do that is to get on stage and tell them jokes. So wherever you are, like I said, I know it's not as accessible for everybody, but if you're in a major city, it's very accessible to you. Almost every major city has a good comedy community, you know?
Okay.
And not just like the huge ones, like, you know, us or LA or Houston. There's comedy scenes in every city I've been to ever, whether they're big or small. There's always something around. So, great. It's really just about getting on stage.
Well, thank you, Steven, for coming on to the Tainted and Tempted podcast.
Thank you, Asia, for having me.
Yes, I hope you continue your comedian experience.
Yes.
The sky is the limit, and you're going to make it.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, please, let's manifest that.
Yes, do it. Yes. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Tainted and Tempted podcast. I'm your host, Asia. What you can do right now is stop what you're doing and subscribe down below. And also add me on my Instagram, which is Tainted and Tempted _TV. And my Facebook, which is Tainted 2_Tempted Podcast. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.